to Bitstorm, a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Ben Slinger, and with me, as always, is Trevor Scott.
Hello.
Somewhere there, somewhere over the rainbow that is 2 train lines away, approximately. 2 train stations away.
Yeah, something
Trevor,
like that. Yeah.
what are we doing this week?
Click pitch. Because it's a game where we each have...
Lick pitch?
I said click pitch. Stupid Malcolm's internet dropped out bloody the k. But I said it. You'll hear it when you edit it. So click pitch is a game where we each have a random word generator in front of us. On the count of 3, 2, 1, we're going to click refresh, get those words, throw them at each other, make a game baby, and then throw it out with the bathwater.
Yeah. Make a game baby, carry it a long way. I don't know. I haven't played Death Stranding yet, but I hear it's about carrying babies.
I heard it's quap.
Yeah, let's do it. 3, 2, 1, click.
Regulation.
Device.
Ooh.
Okay, is this a device that has to meet regulations or a device through which you enforce regulations?
I do kind of like the idea of it being a game in which you're making devices, kind of just willy-nilly throwing shit together, and it just has to meet, like, regulations. So, you know, in this thing, there's got to be 13 caps, and there's got to be, 7 resistors. It doesn't really matter what it actually is. It's just that's what you have to meet. But it gets faster and faster and faster. So you're just sort of throwing shit in there, just trying to make these things.
Yeah, okay. I like that. I'm picturing a VR game. Because I like the idea of just, you can sort of hold something in one hand and you're sort of attaching things onto it. And yeah, the regulations they come up on the screen. Maybe they even get revealed as you're building it. Like you're building something, it's like, okay, it has to be at least 27 centimeters in one dimension.
Yeah.
So, you grab some pipes, you grab some, the casing, you hook this stuff up together. It's like, all right, I got something that's 30 centimeters long. And then the next one comes and it's like must, have a power, like take 110 volt power or something. Like it's got a regulation on the particular type of power thing that it needs. And so then it's like, oh, okay, now I've got to find somewhere on this thing to put whatever, a power transformer or you've got those different things that come up, and each time a new one comes, it's possibly going to mess you up depending on how
you've been building
so
the
far.
other things so far. Because I think each time that you build, like, it's sort of like, okay, the first thing was in the prototyping phase, had to be over 27 centimeters in one dimension. So you send that off. Then the next one, you had to supply the power. So you've got the 30 centimeter, and now you got this is the power where we're placing it, and you send that off. And basically, as long as it matches.
So are you building it from scratch each time, though, or does it have to somewhat match the
I think it's building
one?
it from scratch each time, but it's sort of like once you've sort of positioned something, that's where they expect it to go from now on.
Okay, so you kind of get a little like ghost outline or something of where you put like things, one of those, and you have to...
the Simon Says repeating game in which you got like red, yellow, blue, and you basically, as you're building it up each time, you're now adding the next piece on. But the time limit's getting shorter and shorter and shorter for each one. So in the end, you're sort of just grabbing shit and just throwing it in as quickly as possible.
Well, I like that. Yeah, okay. I do like that in a way. I feel like, because what I'm sort of picturing is that different. You'll have like connector pieces, and it's like, okay, I can put this one on there, and it's going to have 4 different connection points on it that I can then put other bits onto. And maybe some bits, it might be different in different ways. Like some might have a hollow inside that you can fit something into, like a power source or a light or whatever. And so there are different ways to do that. But as you put each new piece on, you're like trading off against okay, if I put this one on there that's got 3 attachment points, all in the one direction, then yes, I might be able to make it long, but I'm not going to be able to fit like larger things on there because they're going to collide. Because the 3 connection points are fairly close together. Whereas if I fit them in, that they're at right angles to each other, I'm going to be able to fit more things on there, but it's going to make it wider, and there might be a regulation that comes along that says it has to be a certain, like within a certain width or something, or it just means that you have certain other limitations.
And I was thinking before when you said, 27 centimeters in one dimension, I'm thinking, what would 27 centimeters of time look like? If time is the fourth dimension.
Well, that's like the high levels where you're building a 4-dimensional device, yeah. So at least at one point in time, it has to be 27 centimeters over the course of this device, which, anyway, I'm not going to go further down that fucking rabbit hole. But, yeah, I like this idea of sort of you're surrounded by different containers of bits. And I don't know whether you have it that you just have limited types of bits per level, and so it's just sort of the combination, you put them together, or if you've just got this massive choice of like, here's all my kind of connection bits, here's all my casing bits, here's all my power bits, here are all my lights, here are all my, miscellaneous outputs and inputs, and you've literally just got, it's wide open how you build this thing. But yeah, the time, you've got this time limit, or at least maybe even not a time limit, it's like how many.
I'm kind of picturing that this is going to be kind of like, if you remember that game that we played in VR, the house, like the IKEA construction thing. I'm kind of seeing it like that, you can sort of connect it up to any one of these sort of places. There's lots of different connection points in this initial thing. And then, you're sort of following along with basic instructions that you've sort of come up with, that you've almost created. And then I think, you could have like a construction mode, and then you've got a like speed building mode that is sort of like the crazy, starts off with 1 coming down, and you've got a minute to do it, and then you've got the next one coming down, and it's like 59 seconds, and then 58 seconds.
So I think the main mode is like, you have the regulations and they add up over time, or it may just be, okay, you've got 2 minutes, and it's like, all right, you build something within these regulations. Okay, now build something within these regulations. It could just be a different set every time. And whether you limit the pieces, realistically, gameplay-wise, you probably want to start them with a relatively small number of pieces and add them over time.
I'm seeing it like, now you got to add a volume knob. Now you add like an LCD display. There you go. You've got an amplifier, and it's like that goes out, and then it's like, okay, now you got a disc tray and a laser, and a button for play, and that's a CD player.
Yeah, something like that. Look, I don't even know that the devices themselves need to act like anything functional. I mean, it'd be cool if they had. I like that they've maybe just got general inputs and outputs. So it might have a knob that you can turn up or down. It might have a button, and then it might have outputs of like sound or fucking water or
what's the
dumplings. I don't know.
What's the difference between water and fucking water? Is it water for fucking in?
It depends if it's pre-fucked water or water that is destined to be fucked in. They need to go in different directions. But I like that idea that the game figures it out that like, oh, you've got a button on this thing and you've got an output. So when you hit that button, whatever is, whatever output you put on there just turns on. And so you can create sort of semi-functional devices, and I love the idea that you manage to create something that's got a button on it and it's got 7 different water outputs, and you hit that button, it makes a sprinkler, right? But it doesn't do anything.
I kind of like the idea that if we had, sort of some internal logic, kind of like the systems-based thing based off of rules that, you could actually create, if you actually kind of knew the rules, you could end up creating like AND, OR, and NAND gates, and basically create your own little logic computer or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that could be kind of cool.
I feel like we're going in a slightly different direction there, but I do like that as well. That you can actually then wire things up, and yeah, whether it's very basic, that it's literally like on off transistor sort of pieces that you can put on there, and then inputs and outputs. But you could build this massive thing that like takes up the entire.
It's a calculator,
but it's a calculator. Yeah,
that's awesome. 3 to 1 click.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Decade.
Upbringing.
Oh, cool. This is like one of those kind of montage
sort of stories.
Yeah, something set over multiple decades, right?
So I'm wondering whether we should add our little wrinkle of something from the previous game has to actually come into this. And therefore, I'm thinking calculator.
Yeah, let's do it. Continuous click pitch, I think is what we call that one.
Calculator.
So, calculator. All right. Maybe you play... So, a calculator used to be a person, right? As in...
It used to be a job.
It used to be a job. Okay. Right, yeah. Like, did you see that movie, Hidden Figures? It was about women who worked for NASA... And performed all the calculations for like the orbits and this sort of thing, like literally on paper. And yeah, so anyway,
that's just hurting my head.
That could be an interesting thing. That yeah, like seriously, like this was they had to do it all on paper. But something, yeah, like there's. I think maybe I'm mostly thinking of computer, right? Like the word computer comes from the job of someone whose work it was to compute. So it could be a similar thing. And because we're doing over decades, I'm wondering if that's an interesting story to tell.
Being that it's over decades, I was thinking it's sort of like there's sort of multiple characters that you play in this game. But it's set over, like, it's in this one family, and it's sort of like the teenage year decade. So each character of the family that you sort of play, play like their formative years of the teenage thing, and you're just sort of seeing, each time you go to a new character, it sort of skips forward another 10 years. So you go sort of like the 1930s, then the 1950s, then the 1970s, then the 1990s, and
I like the idea that. Each one ends when they like meet their soulmate, and then you find out more about those previous characters' story. Obviously, through then you're playing either their kid or someone in sort of the next generation, in their teenage,
and you can sort of see, oh look, this friend that I saw ages ago is now like their boss, and. They're no longer friends, and
exactly. You make all the connect. It's very much environmental storytelling in a way of just show not tell. You just say, they were friends. I wonder what happened there. Maybe you can have a conversation about it and get a bit more of the tell, like the details. But in some cases, it might just be. You just see, the general brushstrokes of what those relationships are now, but the gameplay that you're focusing on is like this character's teenage years.
I like that a lot.
So maybe not meeting their soulmate, because that's sort of saying everyone's going to
in their teenage years,
but meet maybe an important point.
Which I think is kind of funny because you didn't meet your soulmate until 8 years ago.
8 years ago. Yeah, exactly. And I am much more than 8 years from my teens.
Yes.
So...
You are 29.
18 years, yeah. Yeah, I'm 29, exactly. So far. No. I really like this. So do we want to dig into at least the types? We maybe, don't go with full details, or we'll be here. We'll spend the rest of the episode on this game, but... At least sort of the general time frame.
Okay, so I reckon
types of characters.
I reckon we go through 3 different decades, just to sort of keep it sort of nice and easy. I'm thinking like you've probably got the 1950s, the 1970s, and the 1990s. I think they're they're a nice sort of.
Yeah, I think I like we'll do the 50s, we'll do the 70s, but then let's jump a bit further and do like the 2000s, just because then you get a bit more of an age gap, like not the same age gap. So I'm thinking like the first time you jump,
10 years.
20 years.
Because it's 59 to 71 or whatever, so it's like 12 years or whatever.
Well, but it depends. It depends on the relationship that we're creating between. Because I think at least one of them should probably just be like the kid of the previous character. So that needs to be more than 12 years.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, depends
on where we finish
depending on where you leave.
So maybe the first one's like 51 to 55, sort of, even though we're talking a decade, but we're just talking the 50s in general. It doesn't have to go for 10 years. It can just be sort of like the later teenage years.
Oh, I think we're talking different things. So, yeah. Sorry, I think we're talking about different things. I'm talking about the time in between from the jump to the next character. You're talking about how
but I'm also talking
character.
about, like, if you finished in 55, then 71 would be fine, because that's 15 years later, and they could have easily had a kid in that time. And
that's it.
They could be old enough for that.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I don't think you need to do, like, the entirety of the teens for each character. I think it's just you play a certain time. You could even just play, like, a summer.
Probably
over the course
of
like
a single summer.
Yeah, exactly.
For this, something that happens that is important to the story that happens over 3 time periods. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what is this story? I like the idea that it's about, sort of like a storytelling, telling how people calculated things, bringing that calculator back in.
Well, I think, yeah, exactly. So what I was thinking is the first character is maybe a woman who is a computer, a calculator, right? Like that's the job she has.
Mm-hmm.
Because particularly during the war, and obviously we're a little bit after that, but that was a huge thing that women did, was calculating all that stuff. So I think maybe we have her do that job.
Yep, I like that. I do like the idea of it showing 3 generations of this family, all teenage girls.
Yeah. Yep.
Whether the first one is like 19 or something like that, and then the next one can be, sort of 15, 16, maybe showing like the differences in their jobs and how they calculated things. And
yeah, well, look, I like the idea then, that the first woman she's a calculator, she's a computer, but she's also a computer programmer. Like, you see a bit of that period, because I'm just sort of looking at the timing of it. It's sort of as electronic computers are coming into...
so mainframes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Big ticker-tape computers.
No, absolutely. It's punch cards and stuff, like...
Oh, I'm imagining, you see... As it goes from one to the next, you sort of see this punch card and all of a sudden, she pulls out this punch card and she goes, yeah, the computer program's finally done. And it moves forward like 20 years or whatever. And then you literally see a kid, using a hole punch on this punch card, just sort of.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Like, just destroying it.
After all this work that you yourself have put into it, it's like, yeah, that was old technology, this is the new technology, and now it's sort of like, it's computer program sort of thing. And
well, let's think. I wonder, because what are they using in? So if we're going from, let's say that this first woman she was a human computer, and she got she started getting into actual computer programming, and so she's doing all these punch cards and stuff. So I'm thinking, like early to mid 50s, probably, and that's her as sort of a late teen. And then, we jump to maybe 20 years later, 20 odd years later. And she's got, like a 17-year-old daughter.
Going for like, I'm picturing, because my mum in the late 70s, she got sort of pushed into like the bank and that sort of stuff. I'm seeing that it could now be going to the bank, and like they're just introducing the new computers in there.
Well, and I like this idea of really showing women in technology like that, and in the different periods, the different sorts of things they struggled against, and also the achievements that they made. Because I guarantee there were some important women in the 70s and early 80s, like doing things that were forgotten.
Oh, especially when you look into
on computers,
all the things that you know and love today about computers. If it weren't for the women in technology, all this shit wouldn't be with us. Like Wi-Fi and.
There is a woman in the when did she do this? She was an astronomer in like the first half of the 20th century, and her name is Annie Jump Cannon. That's literally
the most awesome
her
name.
Birth name. She's an astronomer. How cool is that?
Annie Jump Cannon.
Annie Jump Cannon. Yeah, okay. And so, and then it's this. And so, look, we don't have to keep it to the teens, obviously.
No.
I think
we follow sort of
the second woman into her, like, early 20s.
Yep. Where she's now, like, she went into work with her mum, I think, because her mum is still a computer programmer, but working for the banks now. So she's sort of following in her footsteps. But I'm picturing, like, this horrible boss. Well, or
I wonder if it'd be more interesting and potentially realistic if actually the mother kind of got pushed out of computing, as it did become more of
a male-dominated industry.
A male-dominated industry, exactly. And so that's what you have conversations around. And she's still helping her out and stuff.
Yeah.
She's obviously somewhat out of date with modern things, which, you know, the daughter finds really funny. But yeah, like,
Mum, we don't use punch cards anymore.
Yeah, exactly. God, we use this new language called COBOL. It's amazing. Actually, COBOL's probably even older than that.
Probably, but it's like, COBOL's all the rage still. Like, all these mainframes, they're going to be around for years.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. 1959.
For what? COBOL.
For COBOL. So actually, it's probably more the mother's.
You still using COBOL? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. All right, and then I like the idea of. So that's in the late 70s to early 80s, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Which, you know, is really a big moment in the computing, you know, home computing revolution and just general business computing and that sort of thing as well. So that could be really interesting. And then, we jump another 20-odd years. To the
early 2000s.
To, like, the turn of the century.
I think it's actually 1999 to 2000 because you got Y2K.
Yeah. Okay. And I wonder, though, if we go a younger girl, like 13 or 14, just to, like, show a different sort of age of...
But what I love is...
treated. Like, she's super... You know, she comes from this now two-time line of computer programmers, and she's super interested in technology and stuff, but now we're seeing, you know, how early it starts of her being pushed out and looked down on and that sort of thing.
Yep. What I kind of love is that you can have sort of like in the 1950s and the 1970s, you can have something reference to the two character date thing. Just sort of not even really calling it out, but it's like if you look closely enough, you'll actually see.
No, I think you do. I think you literally have maybe you have the oldest one, the first one, make the decision to only store dates in 2 digits.
Or she wants to
in banking systems.
What I kind of like is that she actually wants to do 4 digits, but she gets told by a man that she's not allowed to.
Yeah, she warns them. She warns them against doing it in 2 digits. She's like, in 60 years, or in where we're at, in 40 years, like, this is going to completely break. And they're like, there's no way that anybody's still going to be writing stuff in COBOL and using these systems in 40 years. You're crazy.
Now make that punch card. Here's a hole punch.
I love that. That's a really interesting space to explore narratively.
Mm-hmm.
And you could do some really cool stuff. And yeah, I love that. And just being able to have those callbacks, because I feel like each section can be, relatively long. You follow, I don't even know what type of game we're making this. I assume sort of a generally dialogue-based adventure-y sort of thing.
I just default to that.
Gameplay, really. It's almost...
I default to that now. It's sort of like an interactive fiction.
Yeah.
Okay, let's click again.
Yeah, I love it.
3, 2, 1.
That's awesome.
Enemy.
Miss.
Y2K.
Oh, right. Okay. I forgot they were... Yep, continuous. Okay. Y2K, miss, enemy.
So,
is this something...
to do with targeting systems that...
Yeah, exactly.
It's in an alternate universe in which Y2K totally fucked up everything. And, therefore, it causes all targeting systems to miss. So there's actually, like, a new position, sort of like, on like a naval vessel or something like that, in which you've actually got a manual spotter who has to check. Well, mate,
I was actually thinking, I wonder if this is more of just the narrative kickoff to some sort of apocalyptic kind of situation, or at least maybe not worldwide, but
okay, it's kind of like the end of the Cold War.
There's just one, there's one missile targeting system that they just forgot to update,
and it's during like the Cold War or something, like the end of the second.
No, I
Cold
think it's
War.
I think it's like tomorrow. I think Trump hits the button, and
because they never updated
the computer whirs to life. It goes, all right, calculating the fucking ICBM with the nuclear warhead on it. What year is it? Okay, it's 1919. That means the Earth rotation is in this particular thing. So here's where I need to aim.
And it hits like in the middle of like some populated area of the United States or something like that.
Exactly. He blows up his own country.
And then it jumps forward, 10 years, and it's now, dealing with the fallout.
And somehow he's still president. He's now president over this nuclear radiated section of the United States. No. The rest of the country has seceded from him. He's just running this wasteland of mutants.
No.
He calls it like Trump America or something.
Oh god.
But you don't play as him. You play as people on the outskirts of
but you still hear the words "drain the swamp," and all this sort of stuff. That he's
now it's a literal nuclear swamp.
Yeah, and build a wall, but it's build a wall around this compound so that so that the mutants can't attack.
So I think, all right, which coast does it go on?
Look, I think too many times in all these films, stuff keeps on happening to the West Coast. Sort of like San Andreas and Dante's Peak and all this sort of stuff. So I think we're gonna have to hit the East Coast.
All right. So it hits the East Coast and basically creates a segment of the country that is just not uninhabitable.
You know what I kind of think would actually happen? He'd hit the button and the missile will go all the way around the world and hit like Washington or something like that. So it's basically hit exactly where he was.
No, it hits exactly where he should be, but he was off playing golf, so he doesn't die. Yeah, he was down in Florida. It hits Washington. The whole eastern seaboard
is irradiated. Yep.
Is irradiated. There's this huge chunk. And I think it ends up the fallout covers, and I'm just looking at a map because I don't know enough about, the country, but it's half of Pennsylvania It's like it's all the Virginias. It's halfway through Kentucky. It's all the way down to both Carolinas. Like, there's this whole just chunk. And
can we just say now that the McElroys weren't in West Virginia at the time? They were on tour.
They got out
in LA. So
actually, interestingly enough, they were there. The nuclear radiation has now merged them into a single being. But they're still they then got out. They're still podcasting. Their dad has to, like, wheel them around in a custom-made wheelchair.
God.
But then I think what happens is, like, because like the entire government is wiped out by this, Trump's the only one left. And so he seizes power because he's never going to give up that fucking presidency. No. He's still got so many supporters that he manages to keep that going, and so the rest of the country is just like, what the fuck? They basically cordon off that whole area and forcibly, push them out of the United States. I think we're like 10 years on. Canada and Mexico have now, like, it's all one country. Canada, United States, Mexico. Because they're all against this common enemy.
In fact, you know what? I reckon it goes even further than that. Like, the rest of the world, because of this thing that's actually happened, has achieved world peace, except for this one little section.
Except for Trump America. Yeah. But he's still managing to cause trouble.
Yeah.
He's still getting away with shit. Yeah, I love it. All right, so what's the game? What are we...
Well...
what are we playing as?
I think this is kind of like the start of like a Call of Duty sort of game.
Okay. Yeah.
But with a little bit more stealth. So you've got to, like, set yourself up as like a, or dress yourself up as a mutant sort of thing.
Yeah. So I went to, just because you said stealth, I actually went to a kind of like a Shadow of Mordor-esque feeling of infiltrating this irradiated, shithole of the country.
And you got like
but modern, obviously,
and
modern,
you got like
right?
the generals and that sort of stuff, and like the mutants who are in power.
Yeah, I don't
like
know
a
that you have
nemesis
to
system.
necessarily. Yeah, we could pull in the nemesis system. I was more just thinking that general tone of sneaking around, but of course, like, you've got guns and shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's modern, but still making that choice of, like, okay, I can do some close combat here. I can do a stealth kill. I can, like, use a sniper rifle to pick off people from afar. To try to do it without, but it's action based. Yeah. It's you've the moment to moment choices are, I can get away and I can hide over here and then I can come back and sneak and kill that guy.
Yeah, I like that.
I guess a little, even just a little Assassin's Creed-ish sort of thing, but I feel like that hasn't been done a ton in, like, modern style.
No, it's all been done in, medieval and, like, fantasy.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that sort of comes close is sort of like your Batman Arkham games.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still, it's heavily melee based instead of...
Yeah, I think this is more balanced between gunplay. I think you've got a solid third person cover based gunplay gameplay.
But the PC version, you've got the option to go first person.
I mean, why not?
Kind of like a Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like that. And then you're basically is the whole goal to assassinate Trump then? And I'm just picturing him as this, like, mutated beast now. He's, like, gone full on fucking Fury Road. What's the the big the guy with the mask and stuff?
I can't remember.
Anyway.
Can't remember.
Everyone knows. Everyone knows who I'm talking about. Hoarding water and...
God.
I think because we're releasing this episode, I can probably not enter the United States until Trump has been impeached. But it's going to happen.
Okay, just one final takeaway. Everyone always talks about his tiny hands. they're now just a little bit bigger.
Now he has huge hands. He actually went the whole opposite way. He stuck his hands in nuclear waste, specifically trying to get them bigger. And it worked, except not in the way he hoped. They didn't grow. He just grew a ton of extra fingers.
It's like
he's just got like 13 fingers on one hand. Yeah.
The fingers have fingers.
All right.
3 to 1 click. Branch.
Selection.
You can choose what from the previous game that we bring forward.
Oh, yeah. Stealth.
Ooh.
This is a stealth bonsai game.
It's someone else's bonsai.
It's someone else's bonsai.
And they're doing a bad job. So,
yeah, you're just like this totally like anal about bonsai kind of person.
And he's just letting it grow. And you can see like, oh God, he's doing it wrong.
So what's the gameplay of this? Because I don't know, how slow do bonsai grow? Fairly like slow, right?
I'm picturing,
how often do you have to prune a bonsai?
I'm picturing that if you're trying to shape it and all that sort of stuff, you know, you got to spend quite a bit of time. And I'm picturing that with this guy, you've only got you can't have a massive change happen in one day. Otherwise, he's going to notice that the bonsai has completely changed. I kind of like the idea that you're just stealthily coming in and coming up with different reasons as to why you're, you know, entering his greenhouse just to make modifications to his bonsai.
Well, I think it's just maybe in his house, like, because otherwise, you're literally trying to find ways into a very specific place. But I'm just trying to figure out the sort of gameplay loop here. Is it literally, all right, I've got a mission. It's been 2 months since I made that last cut, those last few cuts. I need to get in there because I fucking know he's letting that thing grow in the wrong way. And so each mission like starts with you coming up with an excuse, and maybe you even get to choose from a few of like getting over there. And then it's like a Hitman-esque do things to distract them so you can make these different cuts to the tree.
You go to the bathroom and you like get a roll of toilet paper and just shove it down into the toilet and flush the toilet, and you go, oh, something's happened to your toilet, it's all backed up. He goes away to have a look, and you quickly get out and you're doing your cuts and shit.
And then it goes into a literal like close-up view of you, and you can choose which cuts to make. And over the period of this game, the bonsai will grow procedurally in different ways.
Yeah, systems based off your cuts.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that kind of like a sort of like a rear window sort of thing that you can sort of look across and see when he sort of leaves and that sort of stuff, and then you.
Yeah, okay. I like that. I like that you were in the apartment across.
Yeah.
Across the bit, and that's even. How do you know that? I feel like you're not a good friend of them.
No. You see that he brings home this bonsai.
You're like a colleague or something. Oh, okay. Oh, well, I like this idea then that. Yes, the gameplay is finding reasons to sneak in and cut this bonsai, but the meta narrative is like your relationship with this man.
Yeah.
And a friendship that grows up over time.
But I like the idea.
That could be that's a really good like metaphor as well.
Yeah, I do like the idea that at first, you're getting in there to try and sneak in, but you end up spending so much time with him that you end up being friends, but you also can't tell him that he's shit at cutting his bonsai.
Oh, yeah, you have to keep doing it. And as it goes on, it keeps calling back. It's like, this bonsai is growing so well. I barely even do anything. And like, it's shaping up so perfectly. And you have to you get a dialogue tree come up and you have to resist pressing the button. It ends the game if you fuck up the friendship by saying, it's me, you motherfucker. You're useless.
I'm just imagining that he goes off, leaves in the middle of the night very early on in the game, and he's got a rolled up carpet and all this sort of stuff. So it's sort of like you're wondering whether it's, some sort of murder thing that's going on. And, you sneak in there and you see the bonsai. And it's like, it just doesn't look like it's been cared for enough. And so you go over and you do a few cuts to it. And that's when you start getting this idea to keep on coming back and cutting the bonsai.
Oh, so there's a different reason you're in there in the first, for the first few cuts.
Yeah, you think this guy is actually a murderer. It turns out that, it turns out that he actually is, but you don't realize that.
Okay,
you've become a friend.
Are you like a cop? Are you like a cop or something? Like you're doing your job in some way.
Yep.
And like, yes, you've noticed this off, in your off time, but it's raised your suspicions enough that you'd literally like go a bit rogue, break into their house, discover very quickly that, it was completely innocent. And then it's like, oh, wait a sec, that fucking bonsai. Oh, I just got to give it a little trim.
Yeah. And I think as soon as you see the bonsai, you sort of, it does a flashback to when you were a kid and you always wanted a bonsai and you did does all this, stuff about.
Oh yeah. Like your mum or something had one and wouldn't let you touch it. But you watched her, take this extreme care with it and whilst neglecting you. But she cared more for that bonsai than she did me.
But what I kind of think at the end is like, as I was saying before, that it turns out that your first instincts were right. He is actually a serial killer.
But now, and then you have to make the decision whether to turn him in or not, because you're now like, he's your best friend.
I just kind of like the idea that, you were so intrigued with the bonsai that you didn't notice all the the blood splatter that was actually always there right beside it and all this.
No. I think he's actually really good. I think what happens is, yeah, you suspect he's a killer. You go in there, you trim the bonsai. It's like, oh no, it was just a carpet. Like it's fine. And then you start going back. You're trimming the bonsai. You're becoming friends with them. You become best friends. You're like learning all about them. Everything's great. There's this really touching moment at the end. The game, near the end, the game's ending. And then like you open a closet door and it's just full of dead bodies, and then it just cuts to credits.
I kind of like the idea that one of the bodies has like a bonsai cutting scissors, like right in his hands, and it turns out that if you touched his bonsai, then he goes psycho.
Maybe you do that in like the post credits, because I just that it's all these people who got caught touching the bonsai and you just never got caught. But I just love that idea of just, like the player's mostly forgotten about this whole idea that he was even a killer. Like you don't bring it up at all through the whole game, and then just open into a gory room full of bodies and then cut to black. Yeah I love it. That's cool. All right, 3, 2, 1, click. Weather.
Antidote.
Okay.
And what we're going to bring in from the previous game is scissors.
Scissors. Okay. I wonder if we take weather not to be like rain and sunshine and stuff, but to be like, to be weathered. Something that is weathered by time.
Like, and what is the antidote to that? Anti-time. Okay, I kind of like the idea that your character is like, well, for lack of a better word at the moment, a time wizard. And what he uses is...
That's a perfect word for it.
What he uses is like, I'm thinking a red string that sort of like he strings together, and then like he uses his scissors to like cut the strands of time to sort of be able to tie new strands together and all this sort of stuff, and be able to make changes to timelines.
I love the idea of a time wizard using scissors to cut time.
Yep,
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now, does someone steal his time scissors? And because he no longer has control over them, like his body starts weathering. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So,
all right, let's have a think about how these scissors work from a sort of physical, not a realistic physical, but like you just sort of how do you handle these scissors? What do you literally do? What movements do you make to alter time? Is it that you can kind of cut out a particular physical area that is then, you give it a push and it goes back through time, just that space.
What I kind of like is the idea that you can maybe see there's a cat that's walking along the street, and it gets hit by a wagon. So what you can do is you can go to the part of the timeline, you can cut that out, and you can put something from earlier in the day where it was like, smelling some roses. You can just sort of extend that part. So it took a little bit longer and the wagon had already passed, or something like that. Just you can make little attachments, little changes.
Okay, I just had a vision of you can go up to any thing, any person, maybe just any living thing. Because maybe we talk about like the fact that time only exists because we perceive it, and so it's only living things that kind of you can do this too. And I'm picturing this like grabbing into them or on them and pulling out this like either a string or like a film tape, like a tape. And it's like the past day. And then you can just like snip bits of it and move bits of it.
Lengthen something
only
out
affecting
just a little
that
bit,
person.
and then tie it back together.
It's almost like a timeline in a video editing software or something.
You can just slow down this little section just by stretching it out a little bit longer. And it changes, the other things that can sort of happen, or you can...
I'm feeling like this is maybe another VR one just because I like the idea of just being able to like physically with your hands like grab something and you grip and pull and just this tape comes out of it.
Yeah, but my biggest problem is that the time scissors are going to get stolen. Like, so you're only going to get to do that during the first act.
Maybe you play the person who stole them. Maybe you don't play the wizard.
Well, maybe you play...
Maybe the wizard is the antagonist.
I'm thinking that you play a time wizard, but it turns out that many years ago you stole the time scissors, and now the time wizard who you stole them from is coming back to claim what's rightfully his. Okay,
yeah. They found, like, time Stanley knife.
I'm thinking he just cuts it with his teeth. He just gets his teeth in there and just... he's so enraged. He finally, like, you left him stranded. You stole his time scissors. He finally got to the point where he can literally just tear through time with his teeth. Yeah, I love it. All right, so do these scissors let you travel through time? Like, can you pull in your own tape and that's how you, like, somehow push your being back through time or something? Like, I think all you can do is ooh, I'm just wondering, I think there's got to be something to do with time and space in how they interact. That you can travel through time, but you can't travel through space. So if you travel through time, you travel through in the exact place that you are, or within the same time, you can travel through space, but you remain in the same time. So you got that sort of different.
Oh, right. Okay. How would you? I think maybe you just travel through time. I think that is the limitation. You're stuck in that spot.
Yep.
Because I'm just trying to think, like,
I like
the idea of also being able to
that you're like pulling the strand, and basically it's moving time forward, and you can pull it back. I think that if you as you start going through and you start seeing, there's like a building occurring right where you're standing, you're like, okay, go back a bit.
Yeah, well, that's it. What I'm thinking actually is, so similar to like a timeline, like in video editing, you can pull out this tape and then you can scrub along it and you get a preview. Like when you touch it, you get a preview of what that person was doing at that time. I think you can only go into the past. Like I think you can only affect the past because this is kind of it's their history. It's their path through time.
Okay.
And
so I like the idea that you can only travel through time going backwards. But there's only a limited time in which you can go back through. Like,
yeah,
you know, a day, a week, or whatever. I do like the idea that as you pull out the time strand from someone, you can see all the stuff in the past is got a real solid color. All the stuff in the future is sort of like a rainbowy sort of thing. But you can also see how long the strand is, and you can sort of gauge how long this person's going to be living for.
Based on their current
trajectory. And it's sort of like it can always change in sort of length and all this sort of stuff. One day you pull out someone's strand and they die tomorrow. And then you pull out someone else.
We did something very similar to this.
Maybe.
With the knowing when someone would die.
Yeah. But I'm thinking that you pull out the next one and it's tomorrow. Then you pull out your own one. Right. And it's tomorrow. And you know that something...
There's some cataclysm.
Some cataclysms actually happened, and now that's what you're dealing with. And that's when you find out that the Time Wizard's literally coming to collect his scissors.
Right. Okay. Well, and maybe it's a little bit off. Maybe when someone dies, usually it sort of trails off. But these are all just cut short.
And
so it's literally oh no, I think it's I think usually they're frayed at the end because that's how people die, right? Or if it's a murder, it's less frayed. But these are pure straight cuts, and you never see that from a death that actually occurred naturally within the time stream. So you know that something around time is going to happen, and it's that this Time Wizard is going to tear apart the time space continuum, and so everybody's time strands are just literally snipped.
Yeah. Ooh, I kind of like the idea that you come across this seemingly old guy and you pull out his strand and he's got all these nasty knots that are just continually tied into this.
Oh, knotting it. Oh my God. Mate, is that how you make yourself younger? You knot your time strand.
Well, I'm thinking what he's done is he's taken all these other time strands and he's knotted them together.
Oh, connected them
onto his own.
Oh, I got you.
And that's how he's actually.
That's how he's lived that long.
That's how he's lived that long, and you can sort of see that in this village he's literally stolen everyone's strands.
That'd be a cool, just little side thing.
You know what? I just thought the name could be, and then I realised that it's already a thing.
What?
Death Stranding.
It's called Death Stranding. There you go. We've just made Kojima's game over. I think a lot of people would agree that would have been a much more interesting and ambitious game, but yeah, I like it. I have no fucking idea really how the time gameplay would work, but I love the idea of just cutting time strands in VR and
just
stitching them
just being able to
the
extend
world
it out
around
a little bit, and you're basically generally helping people out until one day you realise that these people are sort of dying within the next 10 minutes. I'm thinking,
I have no idea what the moment to moment gameplay is. Right? Are you altering time every minute? Are you? I think you're sort of narrative thing. Is it a?
I'm thinking at the start, your first act, you're sort of going through the village, and you're basically trying to, help out people who have been helping other people, and you're just trying to be nice to all these people. But at the end of the first act, you come across the nicest guy who helped you out on the street early on, and he's not looking too good. You pull out his strand to have a look, and he's going to die in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, when you pulled out his strand, earlier in the day, it was, he was going to be dying, 50 years' time or whatever.
Right. I see what you... Yeah. I get where we're going narratively. It's more like how this would actually play out and how you would alter things as you play, but we don't have to figure that out. It's fine.
Yeah.
The rest of the shit's super cool. Let's click again.
Passport.
Sofa.
What are you going to steal from the previous game?
Oh.
You keep on forgetting about that tonight.
I do. This is a Kojima game.
Okay, so we've been given a license to go as fucked up as we want.
Yeah, basically. So I'm thinking someone's left their passport in a sofa.
Yep.
This is like the narrative kind of push. Is they're traveling somewhere. They get to the airport. They're like, oh fuck, I don't have my passport. Oh, like shit, it slid down the back of the sofa, didn't it? They go home, sofa's gone because maybe they're like moving and the moving truck's gone, and it's all about like tracking down this sofa to get your passport.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do we make this batshit and weird?
He's traveling to Silent Hill.
Well, maybe it's just around like, because he often he does a lot of like meta stuff, right? Like,
yep,
fourth wall breaking kind of things. So I wonder if we bring some of that into it.
The sofa starts talking to the audience.
Yeah, like halfway through the game, it's like, look down the back of the sofa.
Hey, don't put your hand there.
You try to do it in the game. No, and it's like it detects that you have to look down the back of your physical sofa that you'll see in real life. There's like a controller down there that's a passport.
Oh God,
I don't know.
So I'll tell you where my mind originally went as soon as you said sofa.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you remember the movie Bed Knobs and Broomsticks?
Yes.
So yes. I pictured that, like, for some reason, this old sofa that you inherited from your grandma, like,
mm-hmm.
You find like this old sort of weathered passport or something like that, but it's of basically a country that you've never known to exist or anything like that.
Okay, yep, I like that. That's cool.
And when you ask your grandma about it, she says, "Come over here and sit on the sofa." And so you go over, and she like starts talking in tongues, and all of a sudden, bang! You're transported to this other world, and you find out that that's where your family actually sort of came from. And then you said Kojima, and I'm like, oh, okay. Not going to say that anymore.
Well, no, that's all right. I like that. Like, I could see Kojima doing something kind of
messed up like that.
Weird like that.
I kind of like the idea that, it turns out that your family is actually from, like, another universe or something like that. And
yeah. I think it's maybe like a future, like a universe that's high, like further along in technology than us.
Yeah.
So it's one of these situations where like that seemed like magic,
but it's just technology.
But it's technology. It's almost a bit of. Did you see the movie Tomorrowland?
No, but I've got it, and I was going to look at watching it.
Yeah, and that was basically that sort of thing where like a bunch of people built this like hyper futuristic place. And wouldn't let anyone. I think that I can't remember, but yeah. So I this is maybe it's not even a different. It's like it's somewhere on Earth.
Yep.
It's a city on Earth, but it's got a bit of like Wakanda as well, like Black Panther.
I kind of like the idea that she was like kicked out of there many years ago, which is why she like for falling in love with Muggle sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so I like that. This was her passport, and these passports are literally like the way that you travel to this city.
Yeah, kind of like a port key.
But yeah. But it's technological. It's like a transporter key sort of thing. It works for the character you're playing because it's like biologically keyed.
Yeah,
and while your grandma's biosignature is locked out,
you can
yours
travel.
isn't, and you can travel.
I kind of like the idea
so that's
that
she
actually says, "I'm not long for this world. I need you to send this message to my sister." And bang, she sends you there, and basically you're now looking for your family in this world. I'm really liking this.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. That's really cool. And so, yeah, you find yourself in, I think, a very classically futuristic, almost Jetsons, right?
Yeah.
Like utopic future. Well, no, it's not a future, but
I'm
like
always
utopic
thinking
city with futuristic technology.
Atlantean sort of thing, even.
Well, I feel like maybe this is where the like Atlantean
people actually ended up.
Yeah, like it's where that myth came from, is this hidden city, and like it used to be part of Earth or whatever, and they moved it because they had the technology to do that, but people assumed it sunk under the sea, and that's why they think it's Atlantis or whatever, right? Like, yeah, you can allude to that.
Yeah, I've sort of been looking at BioShock Infinite again recently, and I'm liking the idea that, you know, the reason why, you know, people have been searching in the sea for it, but it turns out that, you know, they're on top of these clouds that are just sort of passing by. I
think maybe they're just like, I don't know, the technology is
stealth technology and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, or they're like underground, or they're like on top of a volcano. I don't know, like they're in some fucking weird place.
Yeah,
it kind of doesn't matter in a way, but yeah, and moving away from what these sorts of games often do, or like what BioShock particularly did, I think this is actually a very progressive city. Like, part of the reason they just hid away is that the rest of the world was falling too far behind, not just technologically, but like socially.
Yep.
And it really is this utopia kind of place. And whether you find a dark side to that or not, I'm not sure. Or whether it just... I feel like in this one, you maybe don't need it. It's more just the family story.
I do kind of like the idea that because you've got these preconceptions of, you know, your grandmother was actually, you know, kicked out of there, that you immediately see them as, you know, sort of antagonistic. That they're sort of like, you've just arrived in this town and, you know, you basically got a guard that straight away goes, "You're not Atlantean." You know, and you know,
I
come
like
towards
that.
you, and so you try to escape, sort of thing. So
yeah, you set up the idea that these people are elitist, and look, in a sense, you can't argue that, because why haven't they shared this technology with the rest of the world, sort of thing. But I don't know if in this game we dig too much into that, because I feel like it's more, it's more that personal thing. You blame them for kicking out your grandmother, but I think you find out that she left by choice, because it was like, you know, that she fell in love with your grandpa or something. Yep. And it wasn't even that they wouldn't let him live there. It's just they didn't want to, you know, they sort of wanted to be more down to earth, perhaps literally.
He didn't want to leave his parents.
Oh, something, right? Like, yeah, you come up with some reason.
And I kind of like it at the end of the game, kind of like what happened at the end of Black Panther is, you know, maybe Atlantis shows itself to the rest of the world, realizing that, you know, they need to actually share all their technology with the rest of the world and not be so closed off when they find out just how progressive, you know, maybe this world has actually become.
Some people are, or at least parts of that they realize that they've been, you know, somewhat cowardly and privileged to be able to just hide themselves away and let the rest of the world burn, you know, and fall into this fucking conservative nightmare that we find ourselves.
Okay, so I'm loving that it's you know, this granddaughter who's going off to find her great aunt.
Yep.
So it's a real sort of adventure sort of story, almost Alice in Wonderland-ish sort of thing.
Yeah. It would feel that way.
Yeah.
Particularly with the...
You'd have some allegories there, because there's, you know, a lot of stuff that you can do with the Alice in Wonderland characters.
For sure. Yeah, you could throw some of that in there.
Ooh, I like this a lot. Just being sort of like a almost a social commentary, as well as, you know, being somewhat political.
Yeah, well, look, I think you definitely would bring some of the political stuff into it, but like I said, I think you really want to focus it on that family story in a lot of ways too.
Yeah,
and just kind of key into those relationships there, and it's like it's about discovering the past of your grandmother and your great aunt, and that history of this. Oh, I guess like you end up with the history of this city and these people here. It obviously becomes a big part of it.
Yeah.
But
I kind of like the idea that, you know, the great aunt is actually the twin sister of your grandma. So she looks exactly the same, exact same model and all that sort of stuff. It just makes, you know, the actual work a lot easier.
Right. I thought you were saying she was an android. Exact same model number. So 27F.
T100, a T800, whatever. Model 101, T800.
It's Arnie. Well, no, I think I like the idea of twin sister, but I feel like they'd have to look pretty different because they've got like much more advanced medical technology and that sort of thing.
She's still young.
She looks like 30 years younger. Yeah.
It's like,
no, that's
but I don't know. I think what you could actually have is you know, kind of a actiony sort of adventure game. You know, where almost
I feel like it's a bit of
Assassin's Creed-y, maybe
obviously
more of a.
I don't think you've got combat, obviously.
Maybe more of an
almost
open world Mass Effect sort of walking around, asking questions.
Yeah, or a bit of a like Longest Journey or Dreamfall kind of vibe to it, where it's like it's a third-person action. Well, third-person adventure mostly. I think you've got some action stuff, and you maybe move. You know, the controls are somewhat sort of actiony, but it's mostly around the narrative and the conversations and the visuals, right?
I do kind of like
to
the
explore
idea.
This awesome future world.
I do kind of like the idea that, you know, one of the first scenes in the game is you doing parkour. Like, you know, you can sort of do parkour in the world, and that's sort of like the actiony side of things. It's almost
just to have some cool traversal stuff.
And then, you know, the guards come up and they're all they're trying to do is literally get you registered so that you can access all these different things.
Right, all their services and stuff. Yeah. By finding this place, you automatically become a citizen.
No, it's like, well, they've got future technology. They can tell that you've got Atlantean DNA. You're just not registered in their system, so they need to get you your DNA registered 100%. It's just all been a big misunderstanding.
It's a big and you just get to parkour around this cool future city.
Yeah.
You find some like boots that make you jump higher and grip gloves, and you actually make it this full-on traversal-based action platformer. That'd be cool.
Yeah, it would be.
I'll play.
Okay.
All right, I think we better finish up there. So, if you want to find us online, I don't know how you found this episode, if you haven't already found us online, but anyway, if you want to find more episodes, podchaser.com/bitstorm is the place to go. The premier place for podcasts on the internet. You'll find everything you want there. We're also part of the 8-Bit Collective. This is a group of podcasters and podcasts here in Australia. Lots of gaming podcasts, but also some other sundry kind of topics. Wrestling, pop culture, movies, lots of things. Go check that out.
Check out their Patreon as well.
Yeah, throw them some bucks.
Throw us some bucks.
Throw us some bucks.
Yeah. We'd like you to check out the AGPN, the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network, a network of like-minded individuals who just like all things gaming. Check out a whole heap of podcasts. They just recently started up a Wednesday sort of a collection of all the releases for the week. So go check out all the other awesome podcasts and other creative means that people are putting out there.
Content, yeah.
Check out the Australasian Gaming Podcast Network on Facebook or at AGP Network on Twitter. Finally, we'd like to thank Kurodost for the use of the song Mad Defiance off of the album Containment Failure.
That's right. So, thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
And I think we're just about at the end of this punch card. Ka-chunk.